The wind screamed through the mountain pass like a dying animal as the mail coach lurched to a stop in front of what the driver claimed was Marfa, Texas. Though Sophia Fletcher could see nothing but white fury beyond the frosted window glass. "This is your stop, miss," the driver shouted over the howling wind, his voice muffled by the thick scarf wrapped around his face. "I cannot wait. The horses will freeze if we do not keep moving, and we have to reach Fort Davis before nightfall." Sophia pressed her gloved hand against the cold glass, her breath creating small clouds in the frigid air inside the coach. December of 1882 had brought the worst winter storm Texas had seen in a generation, and she was being deposited in the middle of it like an unwanted package. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she clutched her carpetbag tighter. "But I cannot even see the buildings," she protested, her voice rising with panic. "How will I know where to go? The mercantile should be straight ahead about 50 yards. Just keep walking forward and you will find shelter." "I am sorry, miss, but we must go now." Before she could argue further, the door swung open and the driver practically pulled her from the coach. Her boots hit the frozen ground with a crunch that echoed despite the wind. The cold stole her breath immediately, burning her lungs as she gasped. Her trunk landed beside her with a heavy thud, and then the coach was moving, the horses straining against their harnesses as they fought their way back onto the road. Sophia stood alone, watching the coach disappear into the white wall of snow until even the sound of the horses' hooves faded into nothing. The reality of her situation settled over her like the ice forming on her eyelashes. She was 23 years old, alone, in a town she could not see, in weather that could kill her within the hour. She grabbed the handle of her trunk and began to drag it forward, but the wind pushed against her like a living thing, shoving her backward 2 steps for every 3 she took forward. Her fingers were already going numb despite her gloves, and her face felt like someone was holding burning coals against her skin. The cold was unlike anything she had experienced in Boston. This was a different kind of winter, cruel and unforgiving. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only minutes, her boot hit something solid. She reached forward and felt wood. A building. Relief flooded through her, but it was short-lived. The door was locked or frozen shut, or simply refused to budge no matter how hard she pushed. She moved along the wall, searching for another entrance, but the wind disoriented her. She could no longer tell which direction she had come from or where she was going. Her vision was blurring now, tears freezing on her cheeks. She had survived the death of her parents, the loss of her inheritance to her uncle's gambling debts, and the humiliation of becoming a mail-order bride to a man she had never met in a place she had never seen. She refused to die now, frozen like a statue in this God-forsaken town. "Please," she whispered, though whether she was praying or simply begging the universe for mercy, she did not know. "Please, someone help me." She stumbled forward again, no longer pulling her trunk, focused only on survival. Her legs were becoming heavy, her movements slow. She knew these were signs of freezing, had read about them in books, but knowing did not help her fight them. The white world was becoming gray around the edges. Then, through the howling wind, she heard something. A voice. A man's voice, deep and commanding. "Over here, follow my voice." She turned toward the sound, or thought she did. Everything was spinning now. She took a step and fell to her knees. The snow was soft, almost welcoming. It would be so easy to just lie down just for a moment, just to rest. Strong hands gripped her arms, lifting her as easily as if she weighed nothing. Through her frozen lashes, she saw a face wrapped in cloth, but piercing blue eyes visible above the scarf. Those eyes looked at her with an intensity that cut through the cold. "I've got you," the voice said. "Stay with me now. We are almost there." She felt herself being lifted completely off the ground, cradled against a chest as solid as the building she had just left. The man moved through the storm as if it did not exist, his stride confident and sure. Within moments, she heard a door open, and then the wind stopped. The warmth of the interior hit her like a wave, painful after the extreme cold. She groaned as feeling began to return to her extremities in sharp, needling sensations. The man set her down on something soft, a bed or couch, and began removing her frozen outer garments with quick, efficient movements. "Your gloves are frozen to your coat," he said, his voice calmer now but still commanding. "This might hurt." He was right. As he worked the stiff leather free, she cried out. Her fingers were white and waxy looking, terrifying to behold. He wrapped them immediately in thick wool blankets, then moved to her boots. The laces had frozen solid, and he produced a knife to cut through them. Throughout it all, he kept talking, his voice steady and reassuring. "You are going to be fine. Nothing looks frostbitten beyond saving. You were not out there quite long enough, thank God. Can you tell me your name?" "Sophia," she managed through chattering teeth. "Sophia Fletcher." He paused for just a moment in his work, his hand stilling on her boot. Then he resumed, pulling the frozen leather off her foot with gentle care. "Sophia Fletcher," he repeated, and there was something in his voice she could not identify. "From Boston," she blinked, trying to focus on his face. He had removed his own scarf now, revealing strong features weathered by sun and wind. His hair was dark brown, almost black, and those blue eyes seemed to see right through her. He appeared to be around 30, with the kind of face that might have been handsome if it were not set in such serious lines. "How did you know?" she asked. "Because I have been waiting for you," he said simply. "I am Isaac Vale, your intended husband." The world seemed to tilt sideways. This was not how she had imagined meeting the man she was meant to marry. She had pictured a formal introduction, perhaps in a parlor with tea, where they could assess each other from a polite distance. Not this, not her half-frozen and helpless, rescued like a foolish child who had wandered into danger. "The coach," she said. "They said they could not wait. I tried to find shelter." "The mercantile is in the opposite direction from where you were heading," Isaac said, wrapping another blanket around her shoulders. "You got turned around in the white out. Lucky for you, I have been watching for that coach for 3 days now. When I saw it stop and leave you, I came running." 3 days, she stared at him. "You have been watching for 3 days in this storm. The storm has only been this bad since this morning. Before that, it was just heavy snow. I knew you were coming this week, and I wanted to make sure you arrived safely." He stood and moved to a stove in the corner where a kettle was already steaming. "You need something warm inside you. Can you hold a cup?" She looked down at her hands, still wrapped in blankets. "I think so." He poured tea into a thick ceramic mug and brought it to her, holding it steady as she unwrapped one hand and took it. The warmth of the cup was almost painful, but she welcomed it. The tea was strong and sweet, and it seemed to reach all the way down to her frozen core. As she drank, she looked around the room. It was a single large space, efficiently organized. A bed in one corner, the stove in another, a table with 2 chairs, and shelves lined with supplies. Everything was clean and well-maintained, speaking of a man who took care of what was his. The walls were thick logs, chinked against the wind that still howled outside. Animal hides covered the floor and a rifle rested on pegs above the door. "This is your home?" she asked. "Yes, it is not much, but it is solid and warm. I built it myself 5 years ago when I settled here." He sat down in one of the chairs, his eyes never leaving her face. "I know this is not the meeting you expected, Miss Fletcher. I apologize for the circumstances." "You saved my life," she said quietly. "I think that makes up for any breach of etiquette." A ghost of a smile touched his lips, the first softening of those stern features. "I am glad I was there. When I saw the coach leave and realized they had actually abandoned you in that whiteout, I was not sure I would reach you in time. Why did they do that? Why not wait or take me to the next town? They were afraid the horses would freeze, and they might have been right. This storm is worse than anything I have seen in my years here. It is unusual for this part of Texas." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Your trunk is still out there. I will retrieve it once the wind dies down a bit." "Will it?" she asked. "Die down, I mean, eventually. These storms blow themselves out, usually within a day or two. We have supplies enough for a week if needed." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Miss Fletcher, I realize this situation is highly irregular. You and I are unchaperoned, alone in this cabin. I want you to know that you are completely safe with me. I will sleep on the floor, and I will not take any liberties with your person. We can have a proper ceremony once the storm passes, and we can reach the preacher in town." The formal speech was oddly touching, a reminder that despite the rustic setting and desperate circumstances, he was trying to be a gentleman. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, and tried to imagine this man as her husband. His letters had been brief and practical, outlining his situation as a horse rancher, his need for a wife to help build a life, his promise to provide and protect. She had accepted because she had no other choice, her uncle having made it clear she was no longer welcome in Boston once he had squandered her father's money. But now, facing the reality of Isaac Vale in person, she felt something unexpected. Not fear, which would have been reasonable, but curiosity. There was something in the way he looked at her, an intensity that suggested she was not simply a convenience, a solution to his need for a wife and eventual children. "You said you have been waiting for me," she said softly. "You said it when you first told me your name. What did you mean?" He was quiet for a long moment, his blue eyes holding hers. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more personal than it had been. "I have been alone a long time, Miss Fletcher. 5 years I have worked this ranch, built this home, tended my horses. I am good at what I do, and I have made a decent life for myself. But a life is not just about surviving, about having shelter and food. At least, it should not be. When I decided to seek a wife through correspondence, I read many letters from many women. Yours stood out. Why?" She was genuinely curious. Her letter had been honest, perhaps too honest. She had not tried to make herself sound better than she was or promise skills she did not possess. "Because you did not try to pretend. You told me straight that you had no other prospects, that your family's money was gone, that you were looking for security. But you also told me about the books you loved, the garden your mother used to tend, the way you missed the ocean. You wrote like someone who had lived, not just existed, like someone who could understand that sometimes the best things come from the hardest choices." Sophia felt warmth creep into her cheeks that had nothing to do with the tea or the stove. "I thought perhaps I had been too honest. That I should have been more mysterious, more alluring." "Mystery fades," Isaac said. "Honesty lasts. I wanted someone real, someone who could build a life with me as a partner, not just as a decoration or a servant. I wanted someone who might, in time, come to care for this place and this life the way I do." "And you think I can do that?" she asked. "I think you survived losing everything you knew, traveled 2,000 miles to marry a stranger, and just fought through a blizzard with more courage than most men I know. Yes, Miss Fletcher, I think you can do just about anything you set your mind to." The compliment was so unexpected and so genuinely meant that Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back, not wanting to appear weak, but one escaped and rolled down her cheek. Isaac saw it, and something in his expression softened even further. "It is all right to be overwhelmed," he said gently. "You have been through a lot in one day. Why do not you rest? There is time enough to talk more when you are recovered." She wanted to protest, to say she was fine, but exhaustion was crashing over her in waves now that the immediate danger had passed. The warmth, the tea, the safety of the cabin all combined to make her eyelids impossibly heavy. "I do not want to take your bed," she murmured. "You are not taking anything. I am giving it to you. Now rest, Sophia." The use of her first name was intimate, and she found she liked the way it sounded in his deep voice. She lay back against the pillows, still wrapped in the blankets he had piled on her. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was Isaac moving to the stove, stirring something in a pot, his broad shoulders blocking the light. She thought, in that hazy moment before dreams took her, that perhaps this would not be so terrible after all. When she woke, the light coming through the single window was gray and dim. For a moment, she did not know where she was, and panic fluttered in her chest. Then memory returned, and with it, awareness of the warm weight of blankets and the smell of cooking meat. She sat up slowly, her body protesting. Everything ached, but it was the ache of muscles strained, not the numbness of freezing. Her hands and feet tingled but responded when she flexed them. She had been lucky, remarkably lucky. Isaac was at the stove, his back to her. He had removed his heavy coat and wore only a wool shirt and canvas pants, his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. He moved with an economy of motion that spoke of a man comfortable in his space. "How long did I sleep?" she asked. He turned, and a smile crossed his face. It transformed him, making him almost boyish despite the weathered lines around his eyes. "About 4 hours. The storm is still blowing, but it has eased some. I retrieved your trunk." She saw it then, sitting near the door, covered in snow that was melting into puddles on the floor. Relief filled her. Everything she owned in the world was in that trunk. "Thank you," she said. "I should probably change into dry clothes. These are rather damp." Isaac's expression became carefully neutral. "Of course. I will step outside for a few minutes to check on the horses." "In this weather?" She was alarmed. "The stable is attached to the cabin, connected by a covered passage. I will not be exposed to the worst of it. Take your time." He pulled on his coat and went through a door she had not noticed, hidden partially behind a curtain. As soon as he was gone, Sophia threw off the blankets and hurried to her trunk. The lock was frozen, but she managed to work it open with numb fingers. Inside, her clothes were damp but not soaked, protected by the layers of wrapping she had used. She selected a practical wool dress in dark blue, one of the few nice things she had left. Her undergarments were cold and clammy, and she changed them quickly, shivering in the cabin's air. Even with the stove going, it was not truly warm, just not freezing. She would have to get used to that, she supposed. There was a small mirror hanging on the wall, and she caught sight of herself. Her hair had come completely loose from its pins and hung in damp tangles around her face. Her cheeks were red and chapped from the cold, and her lips were chapped as well. She looked like she had been through a battle, which she supposed she had. She was attempting to braid her hair when Isaac returned, bringing a blast of cold air with him. He shut the door quickly and stamped snow from his boots. "The horses are settled and warm enough. I gave them extra feed. They will be fine through the night." He looked at her and paused. "You look better. More color in your face." "I look like a drowned rat," she said ruefully, still struggling with her hair. "I cannot seem to manage this braid with my fingers still so stiff." "May I?" He crossed the room before she could answer, his hands already reaching for her hair. She froze, surprised by the offer, but then nodded. His fingers were surprisingly gentle as they gathered her hair, working through the tangles with patient care. She could feel the warmth of his body behind her, smell the scent of horses and leather and something else, something that was just him. Her heart began to beat faster. "My mother had long hair," he said quietly as he braided. "I learned to plait it when I was young. She would sit in her chair after dinner and I would stand behind her just like this. It was one of the few times she would sit still." Was. Sophia caught the past tense. "She died 6 years ago." "Fever. My father went a year after, but I think it was really a broken heart. They were devoted to each other." His hands paused for just a moment, then continued. "That is what I want, Miss Fletcher. That is what I am hoping we can build. Not just a marriage of convenience, but something real." She could not speak for a moment, her throat tight with emotion. Finally, she managed, "Please call me Sophia. If we are to be married, formality seems rather pointless." "Sophia," he said, and again she loved the sound of it in his voice. "And you should call me Isaac." "Isaac," she repeated. The name felt foreign on her tongue, but right somehow. He finished the braid and stepped back, and she immediately missed his warmth. She turned to face him, and they stood there for a moment, simply looking at each other. In the dim light of the cabin, with the storm raging outside, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. "Are you hungry?" he asked finally. "I have stew. It is simple fare, but it is hot." "I am starving," she admitted. She could not remember the last time she had eaten. Yesterday morning, perhaps, before the coach departed the last town. He ladled stew into 2 bowls and brought them to the table. She sat, and he sat across from her, close enough that their knees almost touched in the small space. The stew was indeed simple, just meat and vegetables in a rich broth, but it was the best thing she had ever tasted. She ate with unladylike speed, too hungry to care about manners. Isaac watched her with apparent satisfaction. "There is plenty more if you want it." "Maybe in a bit," she said, slowing down. "I should not eat too much too fast. My stomach has been unsettled from the journey." "The trip from Boston was hard?" he asked. "Long," she said. "And uncomfortable. The trains were crowded and the stage coaches were worse." "I have been traveling for nearly 2 weeks. I should have sent money for better accommodations," he said, frowning. "I did not think about how difficult it would be. You sent what you could afford, and I am grateful for it. I would not have been able to make the journey otherwise." She paused, then decided to be honest. "My uncle made it clear I needed to leave as quickly as possible. He had debts, you see, and some of the men he owed were becoming threatening. He worried they might try to use me to pressure him." Isaac's expression darkened. "He left you vulnerable to that." "He is not a brave man, nor a good one, but he was not actively cruel, just selfish and weak. He did at least allow me to keep my mother's jewelry and my books. That is more than some would have done." "Your books. You mentioned loving to read. What do you like?" The question was so unexpected, so genuinely interested, that Sophia felt herself relax slightly. "Everything, really. Novels, poetry, histories. I love stories about places I have never been, people I will never meet. My father used to say I lived more in my head than in the world." "And is that true?" Isaac asked. She considered it. "It was, but I think that is changing. Coming here, making this choice, it forced me to step out of my head and into reality. I cannot say it has been pleasant, but it has been real." "Real is good," Isaac said. "Real is what we need to build a life." They talked as they ate, and then after, as the storm continued to howl outside. Isaac told her about his ranch, about the 20 horses he was breeding and training, about the land he had claimed and was slowly improving. He spoke of his hopes to expand, to build a proper barn and maybe hire a hand or two. Sophia told him about Boston, about the society life she had once known, and how hollow it had seemed even before her father's death. She spoke of her mother's garden and how she hoped to plant one here in the spring. "The ground is different here," Isaac warned. "Rocky and dry, it will not be like what you knew." Then I will learn what grows here, she said simply. I am good at learning. As darkness fell, the storm finally began to ease. The wind still gusted, but the howling fury had diminished to a steady moan. Isaac lit a lantern, and its warm glow filled the cabin with soft light. We should talk about practical matters, Isaac said, his tone becoming more formal. Tomorrow, if the weather clears, we can go into town. The preacher there can marry us and we can make this legal. Until then, I want you to know that you can change your mind. If you decide this is not what you want, I will give you money to return to Boston or go anywhere else you choose. You are not trapped here. Sophia looked at him, surprised. Why would you do that? You paid for my passage. You need a wife. I do, he agreed. But I will not force any woman to marry me, no matter how much I have invested. You deserve to have a choice, Sophia. You have had so many choices taken from you already. This one should be yours. It was perhaps the kindest thing anyone had said to her in years. Her uncle had never once asked what she wanted, only told her what she would do. And here was Isaac, this rough cowboy in the middle of nowhere, offering her freedom. What would you do if I said no? She asked, curious. He was quiet for a long moment. I would be disappointed, he said finally. More than I probably should be, given that we have known each other less than a day. But I have been thinking about you, about your letters, for months now, building an image of you in my mind, imagining what our life might be like. I suppose I started hoping before I had any right to hope. His honesty made her chest ache. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the white world beyond. The snow had piled in drifts against the cabin walls, and icicles hung from the eaves like crystal spears. It was beautiful and terrible at once. I have nowhere to go, she said softly. No family who wants me, no money to speak of, no prospects. A sensible woman would marry you simply for the security. And are you a sensible woman? Isaac asked from behind her. She turned to face him. I used to think I was. But a sensible woman probably would not have traveled 2,000 miles to marry a stranger. A sensible woman would have found some other solution, some safer path. Then why did you? He stood and came closer, stopping just a few feet away. Because your letters made me curious, she admitted. Because you wrote about building something, creating a life from nothing, and that spoke to something in me. I was so tired of just existing, of being a burden or an afterthought. When you wrote about needing a partner, I thought perhaps I could be that. Perhaps I could be useful and wanted. She paused, and perhaps I could be happy. And now that you are here, after everything that has happened today, what do you think? She looked at him, really looked at him. At the strength in his face, the kindness in his eyes, the hands that had saved her life and then braided her hair with such gentleness. She thought about his offer to let her go, to give her money even though he had none to spare. She thought about the way he said her name, like it mattered. I think, she said slowly, that I want to stay. Not because I have nowhere else to go, though that is true, but because I think we could build something good here, you and I, something real, like you said. The relief that crossed his face was palpable. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides and took her hands in his. They were warm now, calloused from work but gentle in their touch. You will not regret it, he said fiercely. I promise you, Sophia, I will do everything in my power to make you happy, to give you a good life. It will not be easy and it will not be fancy, but it will be ours. That is all I want, she said. Something that is ours. He lifted her hands to his lips and kissed them, a gesture so old-fashioned and courtly that it made her heart flutter. Then he released her and stepped back as if remembering propriety. You should sleep more, he said. You are still recovering from today. I will make a bed on the floor. Isaac, she said, and he paused. Thank you for everything, for watching for me, for saving me, for giving me a choice. Thank you. You are welcome, he said softly. Now rest. Tomorrow is a new day, and if the weather clears, we will begin our life together properly. She lay down in the bed again, and he extinguished the lantern. She heard him moving in the darkness, arranging blankets on the floor near the stove. The wind still sang outside, but it was a quieter song now, less threatening. "Isaac," she whispered into the darkness. "Yes. I am glad the coach left me here. I am glad it was you waiting for me." His voice, when it came, was rough with emotion. "I have been waiting for you longer than you know, Sophia. Sleep well." She closed her eyes and let sleep take her, feeling safer than she had in months, perhaps years. Outside, the storm was dying. Inside, something new was being born. The morning dawned clear and brutally cold. Sophia woke to the sound of Isaac building up the fire, coaxing warmth back into the cabin. She lay still for a moment, watching him work, admiring the sure efficiency of his movements. He had already dressed, his hair damp as if he had washed in cold water. He turned and saw her awake. "Good morning. How do you feel?" She sat up and assessed herself. "Sore, but otherwise well. My hands and feet seem to have survived without damage." "That is good. You were very lucky." He came to the bed and held out a cup. "Coffee. I know it is not tea, but it is hot and strong." She took it gratefully, sipping the bitter brew. It was not what she was used to, but it was warming. "What time is it?" "Early yet, maybe 7. The sun is up and the storm has passed." "If you feel up to it, we can ride into Marfa and see about that ceremony." Sophia felt her stomach flip with nerves. Today. They would marry today. She had known it was coming, had agreed to it, but the reality was suddenly overwhelming. Isaac must have seen something in her face because he sat down on the edge of the bed, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "We do not have to rush. If you need more time, we can wait." "No," she said, surprising herself with her certainty. "No, I want to do this. I am just nervous." "So am I," he admitted, and the honesty of it made her feel better. "But I think that is natural. We are about to promise our lives to each other. It would be strange if we were not nervous." She finished her coffee and stood, moving to her trunk to find something suitable to wear. Isaac discreetly turned his back, tending to the fire while she changed into her best dress, a dark green wool that had been her mother's. It was old-fashioned now, but it was well made and still fit her perfectly. She had no mirror large enough to see her full reflection, but she braided her hair carefully and pinched her cheeks to bring color to them. "I am ready," she said finally. Isaac turned, and his expression stopped her breath. He looked at her as if she were something precious, something beautiful beyond words. "You look lovely," he said simply. "That color suits you." "It was my mother's," she said, smoothing the skirt. "I wanted to wear something that connected me to her today." "She would be proud of you," Isaac said. "For your courage, for your strength. I wish I could have known her." "I wish you could have too," Sophia said softly. "She would have liked you, I think. She always said a person's character showed in how they treated those who could do nothing for them. You saved me when you could have let the storm take me, when it would have been easier to stay safe inside. That says everything about who you are." Isaac looked uncomfortable with the praise. "I did what anyone would do." "No," Sophia said firmly. "You did what a good man would do." "There is a difference." They prepared to leave, bundling into every warm garment they possessed. Isaac saddled 2 horses in the attached stable, and Sophia got her first look at his stock. Even to her inexperienced eyes, the animals were beautiful, well cared for and clearly valued. Isaac introduced her to a gentle mare named Willow. "She is the calmest of the lot," he said, helping Sophia into the saddle. "She will take care of you." The ride into Marfa took about 30 minutes, following a road that was barely visible under the fresh snow. The town, when they reached it, was small but solid, a collection of adobe and wood buildings clustered around a main street. Smoke rose from chimneys, and a few people were out shoveling snow from walkways. Isaac led them to a small church at the edge of town. It was a simple building, whitewashed adobe with a wooden cross above the door. Inside, it was warmer than Sophia expected, heated by a pot-bellied stove. A man emerged from a back room, elderly with white hair and kind eyes. "Isaac," he said warmly, "I was wondering when you would come. I heard the mail coach came through yesterday despite the storm." "It did, Reverend Mason. This is Miss Sophia Fletcher. Sophia, this is Reverend Thomas Mason. He has been the preacher here for 15 years. The Reverend took Sophia's hand gently. "Welcome to Marfa, my dear. Isaac has told me about you. I am pleased to see you arrived safely, though I heard it was a near thing." "Very near," Sophia agreed. "If Isaac had not been watching for the coach, I do not know what would have happened. But he was watching because that is who he is. A responsible man, a good man. You are fortunate." The Reverend smiled. "Now I understand you wish to be married today, if that is possible," Isaac said. Of course. We will need witnesses. Let me send my boy to fetch a couple of the neighbors." He disappeared into the back room and they heard him calling. Sophia and Isaac were left alone in the quiet church. She looked around at the simple pews, the plain altar, the wooden cross on the wall. It was nothing like the grand church in Boston where she had imagined she might one day marry, back when such things seemed possible. But there was something honest about this place, something real. "Are you all right?" Isaac asked quietly. "I keep expecting to feel more afraid," she said. "But I do not. I feel calm, almost peaceful. Is that strange?" "I feel the same," he admitted. "Like this is exactly what is supposed to happen, exactly where I am supposed to be." Within minutes, 2 women arrived, bundled against the cold and full of curiosity. They introduced themselves as Martha Cunningham and Ellen Harris, both ranchers' wives who lived near town. They were friendly but frank, assessing Sophia with shrewd eyes. "So you are the mail-order bride," Martha said. She was older, perhaps 50, with graying hair and a weather-worn face. "Brave of you coming all this way." "Or desperate," Sophia said honestly, and both women laughed. "We like honesty," Ellen said. She was younger, closer to Sophia's age, with red hair and freckles. "You will fit in fine here. This is not a place for airs and pretense." Reverend Mason returned, now wearing his ministerial robes. "Are we ready?" Sophia and Isaac stood before the altar, facing each other. The Reverend began the familiar words of the marriage ceremony, and Sophia found herself truly listening to them for the first time. "To have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health." These were not just words, not just traditions. They were promises, real and binding. When the Reverend asked Isaac to repeat his vows, his voice was steady and clear. He looked directly into Sophia's eyes as he spoke, as if the Reverend and witnesses did not exist. "I, Isaac Vale, take you, Sophia Fletcher, to be my lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do us part." The words sent a shiver through her, but it was not fear. It was something else, something warmer and more hopeful. When it was her turn, she kept her eyes on his, speaking clearly despite the emotion threatening to choke her. "I, Sophia Fletcher, take you, Isaac Vale, to be my lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do us part." Isaac produced a simple gold band, worn smooth with age. "It was my mother's," he said quietly as he slid it onto her finger. "She would have wanted you to have it." The ring fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. Sophia looked down at it, at the circle of gold that now bound her to this man, to this life. Then she looked up into Isaac's face and saw something there that made her breath catch. Not just relief, not just satisfaction, but something deeper. Something that looked like the beginning of love. "You may kiss your bride," Reverend Mason said, beaming. Isaac hesitated for just a moment, then cupped Sophia's face gently in his calloused hands and kissed her. It was soft and careful, a first kiss that promised more to come, that spoke of patience and hope. Sophia felt warmth bloom in her chest, spreading through her entire body. When they parted, she was blushing and Isaac's eyes were bright. "Congratulations," the Reverend said. "May you have many happy years together." Martha and Ellen hugged Sophia, welcoming her officially to the community. "You must come to dinner once you are settled," Martha said. "I want to hear all about Boston. We do not get much news from back east." "I would like that," Sophia said, meaning it. She had been worried about being alone out here, isolated with only Isaac for company. But these women were friendly, warm. She would have neighbors, friends perhaps. They signed the necessary papers, making everything legal, and then they were outside again in the cold sunshine. Sophia Fletcher was now Sophia Vale, a married woman, a rancher's wife in Texas. The change felt enormous and impossibly small at the same time. As they rode back to the cabin, Isaac reached over and took her hand. They rode like that for a while, gloved hands linked between their horses, until the path narrowed and they had to separate. But the connection had been made, the first thread of something real between them. Back at the cabin, Isaac started to say something about sleeping arrangements, but Sophia stopped him. "We are married now," she said simply. "Properly married. I am not afraid of you, Isaac, and I do not want you sleeping on the floor." He looked at her searchingly. "I do not want you to feel pressured. We can take our time, get to know each other better." "I appreciate that," she said. "And I do not think we should rush into anything, but I also think there is no point in pretending. We are husband and wife now. We share this cabin, this life. We should share that bed." That night, they lay beside each other in the darkness, careful not to touch, both acutely aware of the other's presence. It was strange and intimate and not entirely uncomfortable. Sophia found herself listening to Isaac's breathing, matching her own to it until they seemed to breathe in unison. "Isaac," she whispered. "Yes, tell me about your horses. I want to know everything." So he did. He told her about each horse in his small herd, their personalities and quirks, their bloodlines and potential. He spoke with love and passion, and Sophia found herself enchanted not just by what he said, but by the way he said it. Here was a man who cared deeply about his work, who saw beauty in these animals and purpose in their breeding. When he finally fell silent, she shared her own dreams. The garden she wanted to plant, the books she hoped to acquire, the life she imagined building here in this rough but beautiful land. Somewhere in the sharing, her hand found his. Their fingers intertwined and they fell asleep that way, hands linked in the darkness, two strangers who had promised their lives to each other and were slowly, carefully, beginning to make good on that promise. The days that followed established a rhythm. Isaac taught Sophia about the ranch, about caring for the horses, about the harsh realities of life in West Texas. She learned to ride properly, to recognize signs of weather changes, to make do with limited supplies. In turn, she brought order to the cabin, cooked meals that were more than just functional, and began planning her spring garden. They learned each other's habits, preferences, quirks. Isaac liked his coffee strong enough to float a horseshoe. Sophia hummed while she worked, usually hymns her mother had taught her. Isaac was an early riser up before dawn. Sophia needed time in the morning to wake fully, sipping her tea in quiet contemplation. They talked, endlessly it seemed, about everything and nothing. Their pasts, their hopes, their fears. Isaac spoke of his parents and the farm where he grew up in Missouri, of his decision to come west and claim his own land. Sophia told him about her life in Boston, the society she had moved in, the fall from grace that had followed her father's death. "Do you miss it?" Isaac asked one evening as they sat by the fire. "The city, the life you had." Sophia considered the question carefully. "I miss my parents. I miss the feeling of security I had when I was young before I understood how fragile everything was. But the life itself, the parties and social calls and endless rules about what one could say or do? No, I do not miss that. It always felt like a performance, like none of it was real. And this," Isaac gestured around the cabin, "this feels real. This feels very real," Sophia said. "Sometimes too real. My hands are rough now and my back aches from work I never had to do before, but I also feel alive in a way I never did in Boston. I feel useful, necessary." "You are necessary," Isaac said quietly, "more than you know." As January gave way to February, the snow began to melt, revealing the brown land beneath. Sophia saw her new home properly for the first time. The cabin sat on a rise overlooking a valley where Isaac's horses grazed. Mountains rose in the distance, stark and beautiful against the endless sky. It was a harsh landscape, unforgiving, but there was a grandeur to it that took her breath away. One morning, she woke to find Isaac already gone. She dressed and went outside to find him in the corral, working with a young stallion. She leaned on the fence and watched, fascinated by the dance between man and horse. Isaac moved with patience and confidence, never forcing, always asking. Gradually the horse calmed, accepting Isaac's touch, his presence. "That was beautiful," Sophia said when Isaac finally stepped away from the now quiet horse. Isaac climbed the fence and dropped down beside her. "He has good bloodlines but a nervous temperament. He just needs to learn to trust." "Like people," Sophia said. "Like people," Isaac agreed. He looked at her and there was something in his eyes, something warm and intense. "Like us." She understood what he meant. They had been married for almost 2 months now, living as partners, learning to trust each other. But there was still a distance between them, a carefulness that kept them from fully committing. "I do trust you," Sophia said softly. "I trust you more than I have trusted anyone in a long time." "And I trust you," Isaac said. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. "Sophia, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I have been holding back, being careful, because I did not want to push you into anything. I wanted to give you time to adjust, to decide how you felt. But the truth is, I am not indifferent to you. I have not been since you first arrived. Maybe even before that, when I read your letters and imagined what you would be like. And every day since you have been here, I have come to care for you more. I think I am falling in love with you, Sophia. I think maybe I have been falling since the moment I pulled you out of that storm." Sophia's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. She had felt it too, this growing warmth, this deepening connection. But she had been afraid to name it, afraid to believe it could be real. "I was so scared that day," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Scared I would die in the cold, scared of this new life I had chosen. And then you came out of the storm like something from a dream, and you said you had been waiting for me. I think part of me started falling for you in that moment, even though I was half frozen and could barely see your face." Isaac's hands came up to cup her face, just as they had during their wedding kiss. But this time there was no hesitation, no carefulness. He kissed her with passion and tenderness and promise, and she kissed him back with everything she had been holding inside. When they finally parted, they were both breathless. Isaac rested his forehead against hers, his hand still cradling her face. "I love you," he said, and the words were like a vow. "I love you, Sophia Vale, and I will spend the rest of my life proving it to you." "I love you too," she said, and as she spoke the words, she realized they were absolutely true. She loved this rough cowboy with his gentle hands and patient heart. She loved the life they were building together, the partnership they had formed. She loved the woman she was becoming here in this harsh, beautiful land. That night, their marriage became complete in every sense. Isaac was gentle and patient, treating her with such reverence that Sophia felt tears in her eyes. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness, skin against skin, barriers finally broken. "Are you all right?" Isaac murmured, his hand stroking her hair. "I am better than all right," Sophia said. "I am happy, truly, deeply happy." "So am I," he said, pulling her closer. "So am I." Spring came with a rush of green and the sound of birdsong. Sophia planted her garden, and Isaac showed her which plants would thrive in the Texas soil. She chose hardy vegetables and a few flowers, creating a patch of cultivation in the wild land. A mare gave birth to a foal, and Sophia was there to help, marveling at the miracle of new life. The foal was a golden color with white stockings, and Isaac let Sophia name her. "Sunrise," she said, because she was born as the sun came up, and because she represents something new beginning. "Sunrise it is," Isaac agreed, watching the foal nurse from her mother with proud eyes. They made trips into Marfa, and Sophia got to know the community. Martha Cunningham became a good friend, teaching Sophia the skills she needed to thrive in this environment. How to preserve food, how to make soap, how to sew practical clothing that would hold up to hard use. Ellen Harris invited them to dinner, and Sophia met Ellen's husband, a quiet man who clearly adored his talkative wife. It was good to see other marriages, other partnerships, and to know that what she and Isaac had was not unique but also not common. They were lucky, and she knew it. In May, Sophia realized she was pregnant. She told Isaac one evening after dinner, simply and directly. He stared at her for a long moment, and then his face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. "A baby," he said. "We are going to have a baby, in the winter, I think, sometime around January." He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I am going to be a father. We are going to be parents. Sophia, this is incredible. Are you happy?" she asked, though his reaction made the answer obvious. "I am beyond happy. I am overwhelmed. I am terrified. I am all of it at once." He pulled back to look at her. "Are you scared?" "A little," she admitted. "Birth can be dangerous and we are far from doctors, but I am mostly excited. I want this, Isaac. I want to build a family with you. We will ask Martha and Ellen to be with you when the time comes. They have both had children. They will know what to do. And I will be there, right beside you, holding your hand." "Men do not usually attend births," Sophia said, amused. "I do not care what men usually do. If you want me there, I will be there. Nothing could keep me away." The pregnancy was easier than Sophia had feared. She had some sickness in the mornings early on, but it passed quickly. As summer arrived in full force, she found the heat oppressive, but Isaac rigged a shaded area near the cabin where she could sit and work on the sewing projects that were preparing for the baby. The garden flourished, providing fresh vegetables that varied their diet. Sophia learned to cook with the ingredients available to her, creating meals that Isaac praised generously. She suspected he would have praised anything she made, but she took pride in the work nonetheless. Isaac expanded the corral and built a proper barn, working long hours in the Texas sun. Sophia would bring him water and make him rest, worried he would exhaust himself. He protested, but always gave in, sitting beside her and talking about his plans for the ranch. "In a few years, if we are careful and lucky, we could have 40 horses, he said. "Maybe hire a hand to help with the work, build a bigger house, one with separate rooms for the children." Children plural, Sophia teased. We do not even have one yet. I am an optimistic man, Isaac said, grinning. I figure if the first one turns out as well as I hope, we should try for more. We will see how the first one goes, Sophia said, but she was smiling. She loved his optimism, his ability to see a bright future even when the present was full of hard work and uncertainty. In August, they had their first real argument. It started over something small, a disagreement about whether to sell one of the horses or keep him for breeding. But it escalated, both of them speaking words sharpened by heat and exhaustion. You are being unreasonable, Isaac said, his voice rising. I am being practical, Sophia shot back. We need the money, Isaac. The baby is coming and we have expenses. I know we have expenses. I am the one working every day to meet them. The words hit Sophia like a slap. And what exactly do you think I am doing? Sitting around eating bonbons. I work just as hard as you do, just in different ways. Isaac stopped, his face flushing. You are right, I am sorry. That was unfair and untrue. You work incredibly hard and I see it and appreciate it every day. I should not have said that. The apology, immediate and genuine, took the wind out of Sophia's anger. She sat down heavily, suddenly tired. I am sorry too. I know you are worried about money. I worry about it too. Isaac knelt in front of her, taking her hands. We are going to be fine. We have each other, we have this ranch, and we have a baby on the way. That is more than enough. I will sell the horse if you think it is best. I trust your judgment. No, Sophia said. You know the horses better than I do. Keep him if you think he has potential. We will make do. They held each other for a long moment, both sobered by the argument but also reassured. Disagreements would happen, they both understood that now. But they could work through them, could apologize and compromise and come out stronger on the other side. As autumn painted the mountains in shades of gold and red, Sophia's belly grew round and heavy. Isaac treated her like she was made of glass, constantly worrying and hovering. She found it both endearing and irritating. I am pregnant, not dying, she told him when he insisted on doing all the water hauling himself. I can still work. I know you can, he said, but I want to help. Let me take care of you. She softened at the plea in his voice. This was how he showed love, through service and protection. She could let him do that, even if it chafed sometimes against her independent nature. In November, Sophia woke one morning to find the first snow of the season falling. She stood at the window, watching the white flakes drift down, and remembered the storm that had brought her to this place, to this life. It felt like a lifetime ago and also like yesterday. Isaac came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her as best he could with her large belly between them. What are you thinking about? He asked. About how much has changed, she said. A year ago I was in Boston, desperate and frightened. I agreed to marry you because I had no other choice, and now I cannot imagine my life any other way. I cannot imagine being anywhere but here with you. I think about that too sometimes, Isaac said. About how lucky I am that you answered my advertisement, that you agreed to come. What if you had not? What if you had chosen someone else, or decided to stay in Boston after all? I would have missed the greatest love of my life, Sophia said simply. Because that is what you are, Isaac. Not just my husband, but the great love of my life. He turned her gently to face him, his eyes bright with emotion. I love you so much, Sophia. You and this baby are everything to me. My whole world is right here in this cabin. They kissed, soft and slow, a reaffirmation of the vows they had made nearly a year ago. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but inside they were warm and safe and together. In late January, 2 weeks passed when they expected the baby. Sophia finally went into labor. Isaac rode to fetch Martha and Ellen, his face pale with worry. By the time he returned with them, Sophia was well into the process, pacing the cabin and breathing through the contractions. Martha took charge immediately, sending Isaac to boil water and gather supplies. Ellen stayed with Sophia, holding her hand and murmuring encouragement. The labor was long and difficult, stretching through the day and into the night. Isaac stayed close, despite Martha's initial protests, holding Sophia's hand and wiping her brow with cool cloths. "I cannot do this," Sophia gasped at one point, exhausted and in pain. "I cannot." "Yes, you can," Isaac said fiercely. "You are the strongest person I know. You survived a blizzard, traveled 2,000 miles alone, built a life in a harsh land. You can do this. I know you can." His faith in her gave her strength. She bore down when Martha instructed, pushed when they told her to push, and finally, as dawn was breaking, she felt the baby slip free. The cry that filled the cabin was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. Martha lifted the baby, cleaning the tiny face with gentle hands. "It is a boy," she announced, beaming. "A healthy, strong boy." "A son," Isaac breathed, staring at the baby with wonder. "We have a son." Martha placed the baby in Sophia's arms, and she looked down at her child's face for the first time. He was red and wrinkled and absolutely perfect. She felt Isaac's arm around her shoulders as he leaned in to see. "He is beautiful," Isaac said, his voice thick with tears. "He looks like you." "He has your nose," Sophia said, laughing and crying at the same time. They named him Henry after Isaac's father. Henry Thomas Vale, born on a cold January morning in a rough cabin in West Texas, heir to a ranch and a love story that had begun in a blizzard. The first weeks were hard, full of sleepless nights and constant worry. But they managed together, taking turns walking with the crying baby, learning his needs and rhythms. Isaac was a natural father, patient and gentle, not at all afraid to help with even the messiest tasks. "My father changed my diapers," he said when Sophia expressed surprise at his competence. "He said a man who will not care for his own children is not much of a man." "Your father was wise," Sophia said, watching him settle Henry after a feeding. "He was." "I hope I can be half the father to Henry that he was to me." "You will be," Sophia assured him. "You already are." As winter gave way to spring again, life settled into a new rhythm. Henry grew and thrived, reaching for the world with curious hands. Sophia worked in her garden with Henry in a basket beside her, talking to him as she planted. Isaac included Henry in his work as much as possible, carrying him in a sling as he tended the horses. "He should grow up knowing this life, being part of it," Isaac said. "This ranch will be his someday. He should understand what that means." On a warm day in May, they rode out as a family, Sophia holding Henry while Isaac led them to a high point overlooking the valley. The view was spectacular, endless sky meeting endless land. "This is ours," Isaac said. "All of it. We built this, you and I. And we will leave it to Henry, and to any other children we are blessed with. This is our legacy." Sophia looked at the land, at the cabin and barn and corrals, at the horses grazing peacefully. She thought about the desperate woman who had stepped off a coach into a blizzard, terrified and alone. She could barely remember being her. "You ever regret it?" she asked Isaac. "Sending for a mail-order bride. You could have waited, found someone local, someone who knew this life already." "Not for one second," Isaac said without hesitation. "You were exactly who I needed, Sophia. You brought intelligence and strength and a spirit that matches this land. You made this ranch a home. You made me a better man. I thank God every day that you answered my letter." "I thank God every day that you were watching for that coach," Sophia said. "That you came out into the storm for me. That you said you had been waiting for me." "I will always come for you," Isaac said. "In any storm, through any hardship, I will always be waiting for you, always watching for you. That is what love means. That is what forever means." They rode back to the cabin as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Henry had fallen asleep against Sophia's chest, peaceful and safe. This was what she had traveled 2,000 miles to find, though she had not known it when she started. Not just security or a home, but this. Love, real and deep and lasting. A partner who would face any storm beside her. A family of her own. Years passed, marked by the seasons and the steady growth of both the ranch and their family. When Henry was 3, Sophia gave birth to twins, a girl and a boy they named Sarah and James. The cabin grew crowded, and Isaac built the bigger house he had dreamed of, with separate bedrooms and a real kitchen. The ranch prospered as Isaac's reputation for quality horses spread. He hired 2 hands to help with the work, good men who became like family. Sophia's garden expanded into a small farm, producing enough vegetables to sell in town. They were not wealthy, but they were comfortable, secure in ways neither of them had been when they first met. Henry grew tall and serious, devoted to the horses like his father. Sarah was fearless, climbing everything and everyone, earning the nickname Wildcat. James was quiet and thoughtful, happiest with a book in his hands, which delighted Sophia. "He gets that from you," Isaac said, watching James read by the fire one evening. "And Henry gets his horse sense from you, and Sarah gets her fearlessness from both of us," Sophia said. "They are perfect combinations of who we are." On their 10th anniversary, Isaac took Sophia back to the spot where they had first met, or as close to it as they could determine. The town had grown, and the exact location was uncertain, but they stood on the main street and remembered. "I was so scared," Sophia said. "I could not see anything, could not feel my hands or feet. I thought I was going to die. And I was terrified I would not reach you in time," Isaac said. "I ran through that storm faster than I have ever run, following where I thought the coach had stopped. When I finally saw you collapsed in the snow, my heart nearly stopped. But you got to me. You saved me." "We saved each other," Isaac corrected. "I was existing before you came, surviving but not really living. You brought joy and purpose and love into my life. You saved me just as much as I saved you." Sophia leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her, solid and warm and present. "I love you," she said. "I have loved you since that first day, and I will love you until my last day." "And I love you," Isaac said. "My Sophia, my wife, my partner. You are my everything." They stood there in the bright Texas sunshine, holding each other, remembering the blizzard that had brought them together and grateful for every moment since. More years passed, bringing both joy and sorrow. They lost a 4th child, a baby girl who came too early and lived only 3 days. They mourned her together, holding each other through the grief, and planted a tree in her memory near the house. "She was here," Sophia said as they stood by the young sapling. "She was ours, even if only for a little while. We will remember her always." "Always," Isaac agreed, his arm tight around her shoulders, but life continued as it always did. Henry married at 25 a rancher's daughter named Lucy who fit into the family as if she had always been there. They built a house on the far edge of the property and began their own family, giving Isaac and Sophia their first grandchild, a girl with Sophia's dark hair and Isaac's blue eyes. "We are old now," Sophia joked, holding her granddaughter. "We have officially become the older generation." "Speak for yourself," Isaac said, but he was grinning. "I am in my prime." Sarah shocked them all by declaring her intention to study medicine, unheard of for a woman. But she was determined and they supported her, sending her back east to school. It was hard to see her go, but they were proud of her courage and ambition. James surprised no one by becoming a teacher, opening a small school in Marfa and teaching the children of the growing town. He married one of his students' older sisters, a gentle woman named Rebecca, who loved books as much as he did. On their 25th anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch for a celebration. The house was full of noise and laughter, children running wild, adults catching up and sharing stories. Sophia stood in the kitchen, watching the chaos with a full heart. Isaac came up behind her, putting his arms around her waist in the same gesture he had used for decades. "Happy anniversary," he murmured in her ear. "Happy anniversary," she said, turning in his arms to kiss him. Even after 25 years, the touch of his lips could make her heart race. "You remember what I said to you the day we met?" Isaac asked. "After I carried you into the cabin and you asked who I was, you said you had been waiting for me," Sophia replied. "It is burned into my memory forever." "I meant it," Isaac said. "I had been waiting, even though I did not know it until I saw you. And I would wait again, wait a lifetime, if it meant having these 25 years with you." "No more waiting," Sophia said, smiling. "We are here now together. This is our happily ever after, Isaac. Right here, right now, surrounded by the family we created and the life we built." "It is more than I ever dreamed," Isaac said. "More than I ever hoped for when I sent that advertisement. You have given me everything, Sophia. Everything that matters." They kissed again, and their children groaned good-naturedly at the public display of affection. Henry made a joke about old people acting like newlyweds, and everyone laughed. But beneath the teasing was love, the deep and abiding love of a family that was secure and happy. As the sun set on their anniversary celebration, Sophia and Isaac stood on the porch of their home, watching the last light fade from the sky. The children were putting the grandchildren to bed inside, and the sounds of family life filled the house behind them. "Do you think it will always be like this?" Sophia asked. "Full and happy and good, life has its sorrows," Isaac said. "We know that better than most. But yes, I think if we keep choosing each other, keep choosing love, it will be good, not perfect, but good, and that is more than enough." "More than enough," Sophia agreed. They went inside together, hand in hand, to join their family. The woman who had been left in a frozen town and the cowboy who had been waiting for her, now surrounded by the love they had built together. It was a life neither of them could have predicted that desperate day in the blizzard, but it was exactly the life they both needed. The years continued their steady march. Isaac's hair turned silver, and Sophia's dark locks became streaked with white. Their bodies slowed, but their love never did. They still held hands as they walked, still stole kisses in the kitchen, still looked at each other with the same intensity that had marked their early days. When Isaac turned 60, he began to turn more of the ranch operations over to Henry, though he still worked with the horses every day. "I am not dead yet," he protested when Sophia suggested he slow down. "I know that," she said, "but you do not need to prove anything. You have built something lasting. Let the next generation take it forward." He grumbled but took her advice as he usually did. They spent more time together, taking long rides across the property, sitting on the porch in the evenings, talking about everything and nothing. "Do you ever think about how different your life would have been if you had not answered my advertisement?" Isaac asked one evening. "Sometimes," Sophia admitted, "but I cannot really imagine it. This life with you has become so completely who I am that I cannot picture being anyone else." "I think about it more often than I should," Isaac said. "I think about all the ways it could have gone wrong. If you had chosen a different advertisement, if the storm had been worse, if I had not been watching at exactly the right moment. We were so close to missing each other entirely." "But we did not miss each other," Sophia said firmly. "We found each other exactly when we were both ready." I believe that was meant to be, Isaac. I believe we were always supposed to find each other one way or another. I hope you are right, Isaac said, because I cannot imagine my life without you in it. You are woven into every part of me. And you into me, Sophia said. On their 40th anniversary, they were surrounded by more than 30 family members, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The ranch had grown into a substantial operation, known throughout Texas for the quality of its horses. The small cabin where they had begun was still standing, preserved as a reminder of their humble beginnings. Sarah had returned after her medical studies, becoming the first female doctor in Marfa and eventually in all of West Texas. She was fierce and brilliant, breaking barriers and saving lives. James's school had grown into a proper academy, educating hundreds of children over the years. Henry had expanded the ranch and was already preparing his own sons to take it over one day. We did well, Isaac said to Sophia as they watched the celebration. Our children are good people, making their own marks on the world. We did very well, Sophia agreed, but then we had good material to work with. She smiled up at him. You were a good father, Isaac, the best. And you were the best mother, are the best mother and grandmother. And great-grandmother. He shook his head in wonder. How did we get so old? One day at a time, Sophia said. 40 years of days lived together, and I would not trade a single one. As they moved into their 60s and then 70s, life inevitably slowed. Isaac's joints ached on cold mornings, and Sophia's eyes were not as sharp as they once were. But they adapted, helped by their devoted family who refused to let them struggle alone. I do not want to be a burden, Isaac protested when Henry insisted on handling all the heavy ranch work. You are not a burden, Henry said firmly. You are my father and you built all of this. Let me honor that by taking care of you now. It was hard for Isaac to accept help, but he gradually learned. He still went out to the horses every day, still ran his hands over their legs and checked their training progress. But he let others do the hard physical labor, conserving his strength for what mattered most to him. Sophia, too, had to adjust. Her garden was now tended by her granddaughters, though she supervised and advised. Her kitchen was often taken over by daughters-in-law making meals, though she still insisted on baking the bread herself. Some things I will not give up, she declared, and no one argued. On a warm spring day when Isaac was 75 and Sophia was 68, they rode out together to their special place overlooking the valley. It took longer than it once had, and they had to rest the horses more frequently, but they made it. I love this view, Sophia said, looking out at the land they had tamed together. I never get tired of it. I love you, Isaac said, and when she turned to look at him, his face was serious. I need you to know something, Sophia. These have been the best years of my life. Every single day with you has been a gift. If I died tomorrow, I would die a happy man because I got to love you and be loved by you. Do not talk about dying, Sophia said, frightened by the intensity in his voice. We have years left yet. Maybe, Isaac said. I hope so. But I wanted to say it anyway. I wanted you to know that I have no regrets, none at all. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, Sophia Vale. The absolute best. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, too. You saved my life that day in the blizzard, and you have been saving it every day since. I love you more than words can say, Isaac, more than I ever thought it was possible to love another person. They held each other there on the ridge, two old people who had loved each other for more than 4 decades, who had built a life and a family and a legacy together. The sun was warm on their backs, and the wind carried the scent of new grass and possibility. Isaac did not die the next day or the next year. He lived another 5 years, surrounded by love, still riding and working with his beloved horses until just a few weeks before the end. When he finally passed, peacefully in his sleep with Sophia beside him, he was 80 years old and had lived a life full and rich beyond measure. Sophia grieved him deeply, a profound sorrow that nothing could touch. Her children worried about her, afraid she would give up without Isaac beside her. But Sophia was stronger than they feared. She had learned strength from the blizzard that had brought her to Texas, and she had learned love from the cowboy who had saved her life. "He would want me to keep going," she told Sarah. "To keep living, keep loving this family we made together. I am not done yet." She lived another 7 years, seeing more great-grandchildren born, watching the ranch continue to thrive, tending her garden every spring. She told stories about Isaac to anyone who would listen, keeping his memory alive and vibrant. She wore his mother's ring every day, the gold band now worn thin but still precious. On a cold winter day, exactly 52 years after the blizzard that had changed her life, Sophia passed away quietly in her sleep. She was 75 years old, surrounded by family, loved beyond measure. Her last words, spoken to a great-granddaughter who sat vigil beside her, were, "Tell him I am coming. Tell him I am ready." They buried her beside Isaac on the ridge overlooking the valley, the place where they had gone so many times to remember and dream. The family gathered, 3 generations of descendants, all there because a desperate woman had answered an advertisement, and a patient cowboy had waited in a storm. Henry, now an old man himself, stood at his parents' graves and spoke to the assembled family. "They loved each other more than most people dream is possible," he said. "They built this ranch, yes, but more importantly, they built a family rooted in love and respect and partnership. Every good thing we have, every success, every moment of happiness, stems from the choice they made to love each other completely. We honor them by loving the same way, by choosing each other the way they chose each other, every single day." The family stayed on the ridge as the sun set, telling stories about Sophia and Isaac, laughing and crying and remembering. And if the wind that evening sounded almost like words, almost like a deep voice saying, "I have been waiting for you," and a lighter voice answering, "And I am here now, finally here," well, perhaps it was just the wind. Or perhaps it was something more. 2 souls reunited after a brief separation, ready to begin their next adventure together. The ranch continued, passed down through the generations, always in the Vale family. And every child born into that family heard the story of how it all began, of the mail coach that left a desperate woman in a frozen town, and the cowboy who said, "I have been waiting for you." It became a legend, a love story that defined the family and reminded them all that sometimes the greatest loves come from the greatest risks, and that choosing courage, choosing hope, choosing to answer a stranger's advertisement, or to run into a blizzard to save someone you have never met, can change everything. In the little cabin where it all began, preserved and maintained by loving hands, visitors could still see the simple bed where they slept, the stove that kept them warm, the table where they shared their first meal. And on the wall hung a copy of the advertisement Isaac had placed, and the letter Sophia had written in response, faded now but still legible, still powerful. Wanted. A wife to build a life with in West Texas. Must be strong, honest, and willing to work. I promise to provide for you, protect you, and treat you with respect. I hope in time we might come to care for each other. Respond to Isaac Vale, Marfa, Texas. And below it, Sophia's response, written in her careful hand, "Dear Mr. Vale, I am writing to respond to your advertisement. I will be honest with you, as you requested. I have lost everything and have nowhere else to go, but I am not looking for charity. I am willing to work hard and to be a true partner to the man I marry. I hope that you are as honest as your advertisement suggests, and that we might find, if not love, then at least contentment together. I will come to Texas if you will have me. Sincerely, Sophia Fletcher, Boston, Massachusetts. 2 simple letters written by strangers that had led to a love that lasted lifetimes. And beneath them, added years later by their children, a final note. They found more than contentment. They found everything: love, partnership, family, joy. This is where it began, with courage and hope and a blizzard that brought them together. May all who read this be inspired to take their own leaps of faith, to risk everything for love, to believe that sometimes the greatest rewards come from the greatest risks. In memory of Isaac and Sophia Vale, who showed us what true love looks like. The story of the male coach and the cowboy became more than just family history. It became a testament to the power of love, to the possibility of finding home in the most unexpected places, to the truth that sometimes the most desperate moments lead to the greatest blessings. And generations later, when descendants of Isaac and Sophia fell in love and took their own risks, made their own leaps of faith, they would remember the story and find courage in it. Because if a frightened woman could step off a coach into a blizzard and find love, if a lonely cowboy could wait in a storm and find his soulmate, then anything was possible. Any risk was worth taking, any fear worth facing, if it meant finding the kind of love that Isaac and Sophia had found, the kind of love that built legacies and changed lives and lasted far beyond death. The male coach left her in the frozen town, and the cowboy said he had been waiting for her. And in those 2 simple acts, a love story began that would echo through generations, reminding everyone who heard it that true love is worth waiting for, worth fighting for, worth risking everything to find. That was the legacy of Isaac and Sophia Vale, and it lived on long after they were gone, a testament to the enduring power of love.